Well, I enjoyed that session with Cheryl Romanisson.
I liked a lot of her ideas with the high school kids.
I'd like that too. I liked her photography. That was like the first thing she pursued.
The tree was my favorite.
The tree was my favorite as well. That was really, I thought the same thing you did at the same time. California redwood. Yeah, it was really impressive.
It reminded me of those.
So we look forward to hearing her insights, and we will find out if she truly is a heavy metal rocker. Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter, that's Doug, and we have Cheryl Romanisson back with us.
After a week.
After a week.
Guess she had to stay down in the basement with the cats?
That's right. And she survived the ordeal. So we're going to...
eventually our audience is going to write in and say, stop using that joke.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to do questions just a little bit different this segment, just to mix things up a bit.
Okay.
I'm going to read a partial phrase, and you get to complete it.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
This is a test, so if you're wrong, we have to give you a lower grade.
We've determined that since you are a retired high school art teacher, that you will do just great. All right, so here it is. I've called this segment Cheryl's Thoughts on Art.
Okay.
All right. People would be surprised to know that being an artist...
You don't really know everything about drawing or painting, but you problem solve constantly. Being an artist is solving problems.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what it really is.
I thought if I'd ask, you'd be surprised to know that being an engineer, that's good.
No,
that's good.
That's what it is.
Okay. People fail or give up on creating art because...
They've been told they're not creative, or they think there's some technique that they can't do, like can't draw a straight line. Well, I don't always either if I've drank a lot of caffeine. And
or Irish
like
whiskey.
But I think if they have either had a tape in their head or have been told that they aren't creative, they might give up on it.
I usually ask artists about that if they've ever experienced where someone in their past have basically said, like, your art sucks and you shouldn't do it. And I think that's really, we mentioned this in the pre-production meeting, just how much impact a teacher can have with their words.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Really profound, and parents.
Yeah.
And friends.
I agree.
Okay. The advice I would give a person choosing to be an artist is...
Try a lot of different medias and styles. Don't get locked into one thing, and realize it's going to take you a long time sometimes to get it to where you're happy with it. I don't think any art teacher I know or any artist I know started out painting or drawing things well the first time. I feel like I do watercolor well, but I have thrown away many years worth of watercolors that weren't well before I got to that point. Just don't give up on yourself.
You sort of have to, in a sense, fail to succeed.
True.
And
start solving those problems.
Yeah. And not every painting, not every drawing is going to come out the way you thought it would, and not everyone will be successful, but you might take away and learn something from that one that you apply to the next one.
Sometimes if it doesn't come out the way you want it might be a good thing.
It can be.
Okay. The resources that have really helped me on this artist journey are...
Oh, gosh. I think I like to take classes again. Because I am a teacher, just going to local communities and taking classes. Sometimes, right now, I've got one artwork in there that's from an online class I'm currently taking, and I'll talk about that when we get there. But I think the resources of other people who are painting and drawing and active in the media, and they're passionate about it and they get excited about it, And then also talking with other artists. If you have artwork, like I'll post to my best friend and ask her what she thinks. We went to art school together and get some feedback from other artists.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of that joke, the patient that sees the doctor and she says, "Doctor, what's wrong?" And he says, "It's your liver." And she says, "I want a second opinion." And he says, "Okay, it's your kidneys."
Oh, I thought you were going with the ugly too.
No. I'm debating whether to tell the joke about the tragedy of the Irishman that drowned in a vat of whiskey, but I'm thinking about it.
He went down 3 times.
Yeah. He climbed out twice to go to the bathroom. A common myth about creating art is
that it just comes to you. I know so many artists, including myself, who work on sketches and ideas and plans, and we might rework things. If you recently, I think they found a Van Gogh painting under another Van Gogh painting. I mean, the famous ones do that too. They work at it. It's not just something that plops in your head and you instantly do it.
You went to the Van Gogh Museum this year, and one of the things I learned, they did self-portraits not because of their egos, is because they couldn't get artists to do it. So that's where they put
pay for
for
a model.
put models to do it. So
Yeah.
they do themselves, and
Yeah.
they would do different techniques with themselves. So I mean, you see 6 Van Goghs in a row, but
Yeah.
they all were
You
different.
didn't have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned that you're giving your grandchildren drawing lessons.
Art
Do
lessons.
you give them a discount on the tuition?
They are getting them for free because they're my grandchildren. They have to buy the
100%
supplies.
discount.
100%
But charge the
discount.
parents double.
Okay, here's another one. I didn't type this one out in my notes, but I think about this a lot.
This always scares us when he does this.
Yeah. Back in '68, you often hear of sort of the nature versus nurture debate.
Oh.
An artist is just born with it versus those that might say, I can take anyone with 0 art talent and I may not turn them into Van Gogh, but I can tremendously increase their skill level and ability to, like, say, do a painting. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's more innate, or is it really something, if you spend hundreds of hours on, you can really improve?
I think that you see, because I taught high school, you see some kids who have some really good skills and they have learned how to draw, or they see things well and they draw them well. Maybe they've practiced a lot sometimes, or they just come to it quite easily. I do see that. I've also seen kids who thought they couldn't draw improve and become better at drawing. What I think takes a lot of work is to pull creative ideas out of kids, because kids who can draw very well sometimes have all the technical skill and they can draw things beautifully, but sometimes those kids just copy and they copy again and they copy again, and they trying to push them into an idea of their own is harder. And then I've seen kids who just come in with a wealth of ideas and they've got creativity rolling out of them and they've got all these ideas and they draw beautifully and things, and I think I don't honestly always know where all that comes from, but they are just, they're probably, even if I have a girl right now studying to be a doctor. She'll be an artist her whole life, and she also paints people beautifully. She came in knowing how to paint portraits pretty quickly within her sophomore year. She's studying now to be a doctor in Denver, but she will always paint and draw because it's kind of inside of her. And I think that's something that happens. I do think you can teach kids how to draw, but I think they have to, maybe the creative part, maybe the part of wanting to bring something out of themselves has to be something inside of themselves
Sure,
comes out.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thought and a good observation. And we'll be right back after this short break.
Welcome back to the third chair. Peter's looking at his notes. Cheryl's waiting
No,
for.
that's just him sleeping.
He's
Yeah.
organizing. Look at that. He's
Yeah,
got it down to a science here.
We do. That's because you really help, like, give me the sections of questions to ask.
Well, you write most of them, and then I edit them and add and subtract. And I said, "Hey, this question he asked 4 times. I don't know."
I thought it was an important question.
So going back to your teaching days in art, one of the
Sure.
things I struggled with, I could do things, but 3-dimensional. How did you get the kids to work on 3-dimensional art?
2 basic ways in beginning drawing. One, I just did it with my grandson who draws beautifully for a 10-year-old as well. Sit objects in front of you, get a light source on the objects that helps show the light and shadows, and then have them observe that and draw all the light and shadows they see and talk about where they're seeing the shadow. Usually the very darkest shadow is where that object, say it's a vase, touches the ground. So make a really dark shadow there and then teach them to go from those dark ones gradually up to the light ones. So they're modeling something. Really, it's always a trick. You tell them, this is a 3D object, and it's hard for kids to draw a 3D object on the paper. Easier for them to look at a photograph, which is already flattened, and draw that on the paper, but you're trying to get them to do that. So that's one way. The other way is teach them 1 and 2 point, and sometimes with the kids who love it, 3-point perspective, using vanishing points for things like architecture and buildings, and teaching them that system that they discovered in the Renaissance to draw things to vanishing points. And some kids really like that because everything fits with rulers, and it's mathematical, and it's a system, and if they figure out what the heck they're doing, they can make boxes and things look very 3D. There are kids in every class I've had who have no clue what they're doing, and I've tried many ways to show them, and I've just decided there are some kids who conceptually don't know what this is about yet, this perspective drawing to vanishing points, but that helps kids also draw things 3-dimensionally, usually things that are geometric. And the other form, the still life, helps them observe and then draw what they're seeing.
I could draw a box.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really good. Do you remember that, like the big circle and then smaller circles, and you put your pen in the middle and you went round and round and then made a design? Yeah, I was good at that.
I failed that class. I don't know what went wrong.
I used to have a flowchart thing.
There you go.
Drawing that. Yes. What is the benefit of teaching art in school?
It is problem solving, and most art teachers will tell you that because each drawing that a child is trying to learn to do, they've chosen a subject, they've got to figure out how to make this work. So you're pulling problem solving skills from different areas, and it might be mixing colors, and a lot of it's science and some of it's math. I'm surprised how often I'm telling my grandson Liam, this is mathematical. But you're pulling these ideas together for your unique solution. So you're also synthesizing things you've learned from different disciplines and putting it together in a creative way. So I think that if you want to draw something or paint something, if you're looking at something, you're translating it to 2 dimensions. So there's a lot of noticing what's going on and how do I make that happen. The background, the mountains look hazy in this painting. Okay, it's called atmospheric perspective. They're getting lighter, they're getting bluer. Okay, so now you're analyzing that, you're seeing it well, and you have to figure out how to make that happen so it's pushed into the distance and the things up close are very sharp and very clear and brighter in color. So the student is kind of working with whatever problem they have, and I'm trying to give them the basic information and skills for that
Without
assignment,
giving
and
a
then
final
asking them
answer.
to go figure it out. And not every student is doing the same drawing. Like when they do perspective, one might be drawing a bridge, another one's chosen a house. I do make them look at photographs for my perspective drawings and actually translate that photograph of that building onto the page. So it's a little harder than just doing it out of their head, but hey, it's high school, so
Sure.
they figure out how to do it.
I hear horses are very popular.
Some kids will tackle them. They're not easy.
So it's almost like an IQ test, or in a way, because they got to use their prior knowledge or total knowledge, and the answer's not right there. You got to
Yeah.
play.
And you're using a different part of your
and then
brain if
you-
you're into that theory, and some people have said it different ways, but when you visually see things, the part of our brain that talks is a different part. My hardest thing to do is to talk to my students about how to draw something at the same time I'm demonstrating and actually drawing it, because it's like my brain's fighting, because usually I get kind of quiet when I paint because I'm
You
seeing more, I'm
concentrate.
concentrating more on spatial perceptions and relationships between objects, not verbal skill. And so I do think it does exercise a different part of your brain. I truly believe that.
So what would be a typical day for you when you were art teacher? How many classes did you teach a day?
I would have 5 classes, 3 of intro drawing 1, beginning drawing, 1 painting class, and 1 advanced class where I might have 2nd year and 3rd year students together, because you might have 15 second year and 5 who are taking it the 3rd time. I just put all the kids who are 3rd year at one table and then give them their assignments separately from 2nd year. And so I'd have that class combined because of the number of kids who are taking it. So I taught the basic introductory class the most. They had to have a fine art credit. So you're going to get a lot of kids in that, and some of them may never want to step into an art room again, but they're in there for their
So they were hoping to
credit.
pass.
Well, you know, some of them, if they did some work, they could.
Well, I know that fear. When I was in 8th grade, we had to do both woodworking shop and metal shop
Yeah.
and industrial education. And like I was like a science and math nerd, and I could barely do it. It was just not my
Yeah.
belly weight.
It took
Barely passed.
it took me 6 months to make a birdhouse.
There you go.
I dreaded shop because every day the instructor says, "When are you gonna finish that birdhouse?"
There
Yeah.
you go.
And I was like, I did a letter maker, a letter holder in
Yeah.
3 days in metal shop. I was,
Yeah.
I was
Very good.
yeah. I got a B in the middle part.
In my
the
first
middle
school,
shop.
I did teach some crafts and we made clocks. We did some woodworking, but I had to cut all the wood out. I had taken some woodworking courses in college because the kids didn't have the insurance to cut the wood. So they would measure it and get it all ready, and they'd put everything together, but I had to, after class, cut
So
all
I-
the
I
Those
was-
are few lost fingers.
I went to school in the old days, and that instructor, I didn't even get to this part, but he said once you hit a certain thing, he would take you aside and he would teach you these and if you were ready, then you could operate
Yeah,
the
the
heavy
kids
machine.
in our school have to pass the safety test before they can start cutting
you
on
have
the
to
power
do-
tools.
you have to
Yeah.
pass the
That's a,
safety
that's
test.
a good idea.
That's
You
a
know.
good
have to-
idea.
Maybe wear steel gloves. Yeah.
They had to qualify too.
Yes.
It was like, oh, look at that guy, and I'm still working at my birdhouse. What's the toughest aspect about teaching art? And you can answer that when we come back.
Real people, real stories, real life. We're looking for guests. We're looking for you here on the third chair. I'm Peter, that's Doug, and how many different ways can we have guests?
Oh, at least 3. We could have them here in the studio in Colorado Springs. We've had guests all the way from LA on Zoom, and we have gone on location, and we got our 3rd one already in the planning phase.
Awesome. Send us an email and we'll get you on the show.
Welcome back to the third chair, and Peter keeps pointing at me because it's my turn.
You're on, brother.
He was trying to get you to go out and get him a little more of taco soup.
That was good. That was a good dinner
Yeah,
too.
we had taco soup for dinner.
That's good.
And Cheryl was going to answer the question about the toughest aspect of teaching art.
I think at least the teacher I've worked with for the last 17 years would agree. It's students who have no motivation. I know educators tell us we can motivate students, and we try to make our assignments interesting. But if a student sits there and could care less, all the years I've taught, I can talk to them, I can give them alternative ideas, try to see what interests them, but the thing that makes us pull out our hair is the unmotivated student. Not really the troublemakers, they can drive you nuts for a day, but the ones that drive you nuts the whole semester are the kids who just sit there and do nothing, and
So
and you can't figure out
so
how
do they try to
do
use their
anything.
phone during it? 'Cause I remember kids
Oh,
like that. and
Maybe
then-
phone, or maybe just put their head down, or look at a book, or just sit around or doodle and then throw away the paper and never get beyond the first paper, or not even draw at all. Just
Some of
each
them
kid
just
is
sat
different,
there.
but they just don't.
And I was wondering, how
they-
can you just sit there?
I think it's so boring, but they do sometimes. It just
That's
seems
what I
so boring
thought.
to just sit there and do nothing.
So,
But that's the hardest thing, I think.
so now art is becoming more and more technical. You see people, you can put in, like my daughter's fiance, he does this thing where you just put in some words you want to see, like Lincoln in a certain type of art, and they'll do like 4 portraits of Lincoln, and then you can modify that or
Oh.
play with it, and then some people say that's not art, and some people
Yeah, I think there is like more technical things. I think that our art department has a divide, not in the sense we're divided, but we have the technical arts in Photoshop and Illustrator that are more on the computer and video. And so it takes a lot of understanding of how those programs work to make your art work. So we recommend that the students take some of those courses because a lot of jobs are in that. And then we have the more hands-on art in our department, and that would be the drawing courses, the painting, and the ceramic courses, where you're touching things to make the art. And I had a chance. We lost our photo teacher, and as I said, I liked photography. And I thought about it halfway into my career here. I could have jumped into that role and become the photo teacher. But I was starting to really love the touchability of the hands-on part of the art I was teaching. So I didn't do that, and we have a great photo teacher at the school. But I think some kids are better at the touching part of the art, the things where they actually play with the materials. And some kids innately are better and more skilled with the computer art. They just take to it like that, and they get very good at it. And so I'm kind of glad there is that diversity, because it seems like it fits two groups of kids. They can be creative both ways, highly creative. But some of it's more typing in and playing with the computer and seeing what comes up. And other kids are willing to play with the actual messy mediums, and they get their creativity that way. But I think they're different. I mean, I've worked on the computer too, and I think that it's somewhat different in the way you go about it too.
And I've seen blends of it. Like, I know my daughter who studied art at college. I mean, she has a computer pad where she's drawing like she would freehand.
Yeah.
It would put it onto the computer screen.
Right.
But then she can also type in, give me a red background. And,
Right.
you know, it's kind of a blend of both.
Right, those drawing pads help, because when I went back and learned the skills for Illustrator, and that we had to draw with vectors. And if anyone has taken Illustrator, you know you're drawing with points that you're pulling around and making vectors, and it's geometry, and you're pulling those points around to make your circles and things. I wish I'd had those pads. Those came out a couple of years later, and I'd been drawing for years with a pen or a pencil, and it's much more like that style of drawing. But you do learn to draw in a more mathematical format on the computer, because that's what the computer's done. It's turned drawing into lines and circles and geometry in a way.
Interesting. That's interesting. You like both ways, because I know some people will say, well, the new stuff isn't really art, but you can see it does have some creativity.
I think if you're the person, like if you're putting a photograph in and it suddenly turns into something else, that's some kind of like a filter or app that whoever developed that was the creative one. But if you're taking all those filters and things and reimagining it with your own idea and using them, then I think it's art. If you just, like if you go on, like we all do on our phone, if you go on and you put your face into a little program and suddenly you're the dancing elf and stuff. No, that's just a little app that made you the dancing elf. Because
but great for creating content.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's totally fun, but there was no creative part of yourself in that. The person who made that app was doing something creative.
For sure.
Yeah.
I never done that.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a whole show special on that.
You put me as a dancing elf.
I could totally do that to both of you guys.
He could do a lot.
I'd have to be one of the chunkier elves. Yeah.
You know, we in our class, Peter left, and then we were there, and it was just Doug and I and the instructor, and he was showing us this thing. He says, "Yeah, I can put anything you want." And he said, "Can you make it rain Peters?" And
Make it rain Peters.
We did all kinds of evil things to Peter that night. He wasn't there to see it.
Yeah,
he
but
missed it.
yeah, but lest you think I can't sit for a lecture, I was at a medical conference all day,
Oh, there you
very
go.
heavy and technical.
Oh,
I
yeah.
sat there drinking my coffee, sucking it all in. So
He's
it
asked
was
me-
the content and the interest.
He's asked me to edit it so it looks like he was there all day.
Yeah.
So I couldn't sit in a medical thing all day. I tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to give you kudos for that, Peter.
Well, thank you. Yes.
So how do you involve parents, and did they get very interested in art? Do you have like an art show or something?
Yeah, we did. Every semester we had an art show. We tried to have every student put at least one piece in. There was a lot of matting involved, which I would stay after school or on my free periods, cut mats out for each piece. But the students could have. In some of the classes, the teachers had them cut their mat. I just wanted to use my money for other things, and you know, they might have to cut 2 or 3 to get a good one, so I would prefer to cut them. And so they would come to the art shows. parent-teacher nights. They would come. You would talk to some parents as well because they knew their students who were interested possibly in careers in art, so you'd have that as well. At the end of the year, we would honor the best freshman artist, sophomore, junior, senior, and they would get some money awards because this was through one of our local credit unions. The Air Force Credit Union had
Oh, wow.
funds where they would give students cash rewards for their art.
Was that
So-
for education, or was that
They
just...
could use
do
it for
whatever?
whatever they wanted.
Oh,
And
neat.
we had a show that we hung in the local library down in Fountain. We'd enter in the I think Senator Lamborn, because of our district, I think this is every senator, but our district is that one, basically has an art show. We would enter the student art in that, and parents, you'd meet parents because they come to see their kids get awards in that. And we had the scholarship competition that was shown up in Denver. So we had 4 or 5 shows during the year, and parents
Wow.
would be interested in that, and we'd try to get students involved with that. Parent-teacher conferences were a good way to meet parents too. Not every parent would come, but you would meet them. So those were opportunities for parents.
And when we get back, we're going to look at more art.
Yeah,
Your
we went
art.
over,
Yeah.
didn't we?
And we're going to find out if she's really a heavy metal gal.
Wow.
Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter. He self-identifies as Doug, and we're here with Cheryl Romanisson, educator, retired educator, and art teacher. Although you're teaching your grandkids, so you're
I
sort
am.
of still doing it.
A little.
Yep, we're going to
And
look
still
at.
making drawings and making art. So.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to look at some more of your art, but first,
Okay.
just a couple of questions about you. Okay. In terms of relaxing, like, what's your favorite kind of book to read? Do you have a book or a series?
I like mysteries. I am in a book club right now where I'm rereading the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis because I love to read C.S. Lewis, and I'll read him again and again. I like his work. I am reading, my grandkids that I'm teaching have read the Wing Feather Trilogy by Andrew Peterson. It's a child's book, so I'm reading that, so I'll have something to talk.
Sounds a little bit too advanced for me.
It's some kind of fantasy. It's kind of like Tolkien, but I would say it's a lot more juvenile than Tolkien, but I think it's going to develop into this bigger story. So I'm reading that with them. I'm also reading a Dorothy Sayers mystery because in my book club, people were raving about Dorothy Sayers, and I've heard about her for a long time, but I've never read her. So I can be a little eclectic, and I'm also reading a book for that Art and Faith group from our church where we go, and it's called Beautiful Truth by Sarah Clarkson. I think she's somebody who used to live up in Monument, and I'm finding this book amazing because she's very honest about some mental illness in her life and how she clung to God and kind of worked through some things with beauty. Beauty drew her away from darkness.
Nice.
So a variety.
Peter and I are reading the Screw Tape Letters by.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's interesting to reread it so many years later. The first time you read it, you kind of get caught up in the novelty of demons talking and strategizing.
They wanted him to do another one, and he said no. He doesn't want to get into that mindset again. He did not want to do another one.
That was not an easy book to write.
Yeah, but it's very clever.
It is
It's very
clever.
clever and very accurate, I think. I was really
think so.
impressed.
Yeah.
What about favorite movies?
That's pretty easy. I think one of my favorite movies of all time is Last of the Mohicans. Came out in 1992. It's visually gorgeous. Daniel Day-Lewis acts the main role, and along with an Indian actor, I can't remember his name now, but he's good. And the reviews of that was it's better than the book, which was by James Fenimore Cooper, and they thought the movie got the elements of the classic book without the wordiness of Cooper. It just was visually beautiful. I watch it every year, is Lord of the Rings trilogy. You might have guessed. I like things like that, and I also like Narnia.
Did you watch the new one on Netflix?
I haven't yet. I will eventually get to it.
It's not as good, but it is. I thought it was good.
Yeah,
well done.
people have told me to watch it, but it's based on before, so it's not Tolkien. So I don't know.
Well, they pulled a lot of his stories.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And some of these stories are supposed to take place over like 10,000 years. He kind of combines them. They kind of combine them in this, but there's a lot of Tolkien in it.
Yeah.
And what about music? I mean, you mentioned, you chose some Journey. Are you kind of a classic rock person?
I like U2 and Bruce Springsteen. There's my two really heavy, and I dance a lot to country music because Dan and I met dancing, and so I know country artists from our enjoyment of doing like country dancing. But just to listen to, Springsteen spoke to me in the 80s and 90s. And when I was working in a hospital before I got my first teaching job, I think U2 was mid-80s, and I heard their music on the radio. And I remember literally walking over to that radio like, who are these guys? I heard the edge guitar behind it, and I had to find out who they were. And so I've gone to 2 U2 concerts, and Dan and I are going to see Bruce Springsteen in Denver come March 2nd, so we're going to go together.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Yeah, he certainly was.
I remember when Springsteen came out, not a lot of people... He had a slow start to his career.
He probably did.
And I think because his music was that different, and I liked him.
Yeah. They both write a lot of their own music, and that's one thing I admire.
Well, I remember sort of Springsteen and Michael Jackson sort of equally popular at the same time. I don't remember if that was late 80s or when exactly that was, but they both...
Michael was more popular, but Springsteen...
All I can think of is when my kids were little... that one of the presidents, I know we don't get political, so I won't even say which one, but chose Born in the USA for their theme song, and I thought they didn't really listen to that song because it's a protest song for Vietnam.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's a good song for being born in the USA.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's really funny that so many of the people in government now were protesters and speaking against the man, and now they are the man.
Yeah, I worked for a lady. She's getting her clearance. She says, I don't know if I'm going to get it.
Burning flags and doing things like that.
But she got it. I mean, it was kind of like, that was in you were young or something.
So do you like to play your favorite groups while you paint, or do you have a special painting music?
No, I play different things. I do remember once listening to, I'm trying to think which album. Anyway, I was listening to a U2 album while I had to paint a great big sky in the background of this one painting I was doing that was kind of stormy, and it really helped because my brush was moving fast to the U2 music, and you tend to paint in the rhythm of the music you're hearing. It may not be the words as much as the rhythm, but that fast music was helping me lay down all that watercolor quick, because
Nice.
you really can't go back on those skies right away and get it in there so it looked good.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're going to just look at probably one more painting, and I'm going to pick the birds because I like the birds.
Sure.
So this one is number 7, and tell us about this one.
Okay, all right. Well, I like birds too, and I have painted individual birds. I usually put out bird feeders. So a few of these birds, I basically took the photos from the feeder that I have in back, like the ruby-throated. I think the one down here is from that feeder. And the bluebird, I think I got from the feeder, and the chickadee are birds that I've actually taken photos. Others, I had to look at a lot of reference pictures because I haven't seen all these birds. But these are all
I've seen
Colorado
hummingbirds,
birds.
but they
Is that-
go by too fast.
Is
for
that
me
a
to
is
see
that a
very
blue
much of
jay?
it.
Is that a blue jay there on your left?
Yes, it's a blue bird. I think that's the blue bird, not so much a blue jay. It might be.
I was just wondering if that
Yeah,
was from
no, I don't.
shot
Yeah.
of Toronto.
Yeah, and these are all birds that I would like to see. This guy, it's a waxwing, but I haven't seen one of these guys yet. But they live in Colorado, and this is a rufous hummingbird. But
Oh,
we usually see the ruby-throated ones, but I thought that might be a little bit of fun color to put in there. So basically, the background's kind of made up, and I put some branches there to get all the birds in the picture. I think I could have probably sold that to some. It's a big painting. It's a good size. It's probably about 22 by 32. It's a big size. But I never got it framed. It's sitting in my studio still on the paper.
Do you have you done like a big eagle? Like a bald eagle, or
I have
what's the other one?
not
A great eagle, brown.
Painted. I drew an eagle once in college. There was a stuffed eagle in a still life, and I drew him because he was sitting right there in the middle of a still life. But I have not painted an eagle. No.
What about like a big vicious animal like a wolf?
Let me think. In high school I did a tiger, but it was ceramic. And it's got big paws. So I still have that little piece from high school that I saved.
wow.
And it's three-dimensional. And then I have done a lot of pictures of animals from photos I've taken. I've got deer, rabbit paintings, and a lot of deer with antler, because when we walk around, I live on the south side of Colorado Springs, and when we walk around our neighborhood, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And squirrels. The squirrels, my sister has tamed them. She lives on our property too in a separate house. And basically they'll feed out of her hand. So all I have to do is put some food down by my feet, take lots of close-up pictures, and I've got pictures of squirrels to paint anytime I want.
Do squirrels get into your bird feeders?
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly.
We had that.
So do the
when we
deer,
had deer.
by the way.
Yeah.
This time of
Oh,
year,
deer.
They
the
also
deer
like to
do
eat,
too.
deer like to eat like tulips as well, I hear, or some kind of flowers.
Yeah, they like to eat your flowers sometimes, yeah.
Well, we'll have more stories of vegetarian animals eating vegetables when we come right back. Hi, I'm Peter from Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching, and as you know, I do help people with drug and alcohol recovery issues. I love to help people get better, but I also offer a variety of other services, including regular life coaching services. I've helped several people write and finish a book. I've helped a doctor that was in medical school graduate and then get into a residency. And I also actually have quite a background in mathematics, and I do some math tutoring for the GED as well as the ASVAB for those that are thinking about a career in the military. So my contact information is on the screen. Please send me an email or a text, and we can talk about some of these services and how I can help. That's Peter Grigg at Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching.
Welcome back to the third year. The third year, huh?
Third
Third
year.
year.
Yeah.
It's been a long day for
Yeah.
the third chair, and Peter, who had to sit through 20 hours today of learning how to be a doctor or
Yeah.
learning doctor skills, and poor Cheryl has to put up with us.
I had an easy day. No
Oh,
problem.
you had an easy day.
Yeah.
And, now, you said in both episodes that you like to travel, and you talked about Ireland last week. You talked about going back to Indiana. What is there another country that you traveled that you really loved and you got some art from?
I have traveled. I haven't done any paintings from this one. My sister lived in Israel for a time. And so when she lived there, I went over to visit her in Israel. And I went with a tour group, but then she was living there, and I broke away from the group for 3 days. And
Rebel.
basically, this was the plan. And she took me out, and it was really fun because we hiked in En-Gedi, where David hid out from Saul. So we hiked in all the little nooks and crannies looking down at the Dead Sea in En-Gedi. And we also went out to Ashkelon on the beach. And yeah, I have a few pieces of ancient marble in my house from finding them just in the sand on the beach. I really like ancient things too. So just finding these little pieces of marble that obviously are not new, you know, they're everywhere in Israel. So I've done that. I've gone to Canada. This summer we're going to Alaska. I have a friend who we're going up
beautiful.
to Alaska, and I'm excited about that. And I have a bucket list wish to go to Australia and New Zealand. My son's been to New Zealand. If I had to pick one of the two, it would be New Zealand. So I don't know if I'm going
Because
to
the
get
Lord of
there.
the Rings was filmed there.
Well, that's part of it. But
Because
he's a
I used to
mountain
be
climber, and he
Australian.
loved it. Yeah, he worked with Raytheon one summer, and he worked in Antarctica. And part of the perks of working there before he got married was he got a trip, and he had 5 choices of places at the end of that he could go, and he chose New Zealand. And so he was overflowing with how beautiful it was. So I would like to go there. And my granddaughter, who's 16, my daughter's daughter, we plan a trip to Paris sometime. She was going to go after her 16th birthday, but she had to take summer school. So when it's a good time for her to go, we'll go over. And probably this will just be a girl trip, but we'll go with the ladies. My sister lived in Paris for a while too, so she'll probably go be the best speaker of French, and we'll go over to Paris and France.
That'd be fun.
Probably good to have somebody speaking French.
That should be helpful.
Yeah,
That should be good.
Are you going to go see the Louvre? And
I'm sure, although Notre Dame has been burned, and so that won't
That's
be what
sad,
it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was sad because
Yeah.
I'm sure it was very beautiful.
My sister always likes the Pompidou too, which is a modern art museum, and I'll probably go see the palaces and things. But she has some places she really liked to walk along the Seine River and things. So we'll explore Paris from someone who used to live there and have a good time with that too.
sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a painter and I wanted a place to go to paint in the summertime, Paris would be
Paris
one of my
would be
top
it.
choices.
Yeah.
Italy would also be one.
Yes, we probably will include Italy on that trip too, because we're not that far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's the neat thing about Europe. Those countries are so close
Oh,
together.
they are. I know.
And then, I mean, we went there last summer, and we went from Netherlands to Germany
Yeah.
and Paris, and after we flew in, nobody asked us for a passport. I mean, we went through.
They just went from one to the other.
Yeah, Of course, we were on a cruise,
Yeah.
so the company might have
already shown who was going.
Sure.
showed us there.
That's
but
cool.
but I don't think you have that much crossing the
The
border.
passports were pretty easy. I mean, when I've gone to, but then mostly I've gone lately to England, Scotland, Ireland, which they would be easier. Israel was a bit of an ordeal at the time I went to. They're very, very careful on we flew their airline, and they're very careful on interviewing you before you got in the country. And so
Sure.
this was, when I went, Yasser Arafat was still alive and ruling with the Palestinians. It was pretty peaceful time at that time, but yeah, so
Sure.
they had to be careful, I think.
So we're going to put on the screen how
Okay.
people can send you an email. You have in the past and sound like you're gearing up to at least consider doing commissions for people. So that'll be on the screen. And otherwise, thank you so much for being back this week.
Okay.
Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell icon so you know when we've uploaded another episode. Thank you and good night.
This is the third